At 0430 hours, beneath the flickering fluorescent lights of a secure briefing room in Langley, Virginia, Lieutenant Ray McCall sat stone-faced, eyes locked on the black dossier placed in front of him. No name, no seal, just a thick rubber band, and a blood-red stamp across the top. Widow's Web, eyes only. The man who handed it over, Deputy Director Charles Whitman, didn't sit. He just stood there, arms folded, eyes hollow. "This doesn't leave the room," Whitman said quietly. "Not on record, not in system. Not even in your team's post-mission logs. Understand?" Ray nodded once, still silent. Inside the file were three things: a satellite photo of a bombed-out research compound in eastern Syria, a series of grainy stills of a woman being shoved into an unmarked van, and the schematics of something Ray couldn't fully understand. A small, sleek device with biometric interfaces, labeled Z1 Human Signature Discriminator. Below that, subject, Dr. Eliza Brandt, U.S. citizen. Asset critical. Status, abducted. Retrieval priority. Level red. Ray let out a slow breath, his fingers tightening on the file. He knew who Dr. Brandt was. She'd once been heralded as the biometric conscience of modern warfare. A DARPA-backed genius who had designed early-stage tech to differentiate civilians from combatants in real time. A system that could, theoretically, stop drone strikes from killing innocents. 3 months ago, she'd gone silent during an academic visit to Jordan. The official story claimed she'd disappeared during a sandstorm on her way to Ammon. But Ray had seen too many sandstorm excuses to believe it. "What aren't you telling me?" Ray finally asked. Doc Whitman gave the kind of half-smile bureaucrats used when they couldn't lie outright. "She didn't disappear. She ran, went dark, took her prototype with her. The system she built, it works. And if it's reverse-engineered by the wrong people, we're not talking about defense. We're talking about programmable genocide." Ray looked again at the device schematics. The implications settled in his stomach like concrete. "So who has her?" Whitman hesitated. "We think a splinter faction. They're off-grid, no formal name. Freelancers, mostly ex-Russian intel and former Iranian special forces. Private bidders with deep pockets. They want Brandt for her tech, and because she knows who funded the off-books trials that no one was supposed to run. And Command wants us to extract her, or destroy the prototype, and silence her, if necessary. The official mission is recovery. But make no mistake, Lieutenant, this is a containment operation." Ray stared at the file, heart hammering. His team, Ghost 7, was among the most elite clandestine ops units in the U.S. Special Warfare Command. Their missions didn't make headlines. They didn't even make private records. They were the last call when everything else failed. "You'll go dark," Whitman added. "No satellite, no drone support, local assets only. And Ray, you get one shot. If things go sideways, there's no cavalry. We'll disavow. Are you in?" Ray stood and nodded once. Ghost 7 will be wheels up by 1900, back in the team's hangar-sized prep bay at a decommissioned airfield in Nevada. The other 6 members of Ghost 7 were already loading gear when Ray walked in. No one asked what the mission was. They saw the file. That was enough. Sergeant Theo Raines, the team's medic and scout, strapped on his comms gear and looked up. "How bad?" Ray replied simply, "Containment level. Biometric intel. Hostile zone. No backup." They all froze for a second, then went right back to work. The youngest tech specialist, Jordan Flick Alvarez, muttered under his breath, "Man, I just unpacked my go bag." Ray clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Pack it again. And this time, make sure your tracker doesn't ping the wrong satellite like in Tunisia." Flick rolled his eyes but smiled. Gallows humor, always the Last comfort of dead men walking. By sundown, the C-130 transport was humming on the tarmac. Everyone was quiet. Inside, Ray stared out into the burning orange horizon. His mind wasn't on the mission parameters or the exit plan. It was on Dr. Brandt, on her face in that photo frightened, yes, but also determined. Like she knew what she was doing. Why had she run? Why now? And who was hunting her? As the ramp lifted and the berg roared skyward, Ray tapped his radio twice, a silent ritual. Ghost 7 was airborne. They were flying into a war no one would admit existed, and not all of them would return. Asterisk, the night sky over eastern Syria was a patchwork of stars obscured by low, shifting clouds. Ghost 7 dropped silently from their C-130, plunging through cold air toward the barren desert below. Lieutenant Ray McCall's heart pounded in rhythm with the thud of his boots hitting sand. Each man's face was hidden beneath night vision goggles, their breaths quiet but steady. Radio silence was mandatory. Their objective was clear: locate Dr. Eliza Brandt, secure the biometric prototype, and exfiltrate before dawn. No reinforcements. No extraction if compromised. The desert stretched out endlessly, dunes rolling like waves beneath the moonlight, ruined buildings scattered like forgotten bones of a dead city. This was the no man's land between hostile militias and rogue factions, a place whispered about in intelligence circles as the graveyard of lost missions. Ghost 7 moved like shadows, weaving between jagged ruins and shattered walls. Theo Raines led the way, scout eyes sweeping for movement. Flick Alvarez's handheld scanner beeped quietly, tracking faint enemy signals and drone surveillance. The squad communicated only with hand signals, fingers raised or flicked to silent. Ants choreographed by countless covert operations. Checkpoint 1, whispered Ray into his throat mic. The team froze. Ahead, an old textile factory lay partially collapsed. Satellite photos showed that the building had been a suspected hideout. Their entry point was a hole blasted through the eastern wall, a narrow crawl space, barely wide enough for a man. They slipped inside. The interior was a tomb. Dust hung thick in the air, mixing with the metallic stench of rust and stale sweat. Flick's scanner ticked erratically interference from unknown devices. Ray signaled forward cautiously. Then a sudden crack. A gunshot ricocheted off steel. Beams! Ambush! Theo shouted as muzzle flashes exploded from hidden corners. Bullets tore through shadows. The team scattered, ducking behind overturned machinery and concrete pillars. Flick's headset buzzed violently. Static drowned their comms. Radio blackout! Flick yelled. We're jammed! Ray's eyes darted as tracer rounds illuminated the room. The enemy had anticipated their arrival. Who had tipped them off? The question burned hotter than the gunfire. Theo returned fire, dragging a wounded teammate behind cover. Another burst shredded a pipe above their heads, showering sparks. The air was thick with dust and fear. We're pinned. Flick gasped, voice breaking. No signal to command. Ray's mind raced. Their entire extraction depended on stealth and precise timing. Now they were trapped, with only minutes before enemy reinforcements arrived. Fall back, Ray ordered. Regroup at the rendezvous point north perimeter. One by one, a squad fought their way through enemy lines. Flick dropped, clutching his shoulder. I'm hit. He called out. Theo pulled him to safety. Stay with us. Outside, sandstorm clouds began rolling in, swallowing light and sound. The world turned to blurred grays and blacks as the month. Wind whipped across the ruins. Ray tried his radio again. Static. Nothing. HQ single quotes S screen blinked. Nitrogen monoxide contact. At command headquarters in Virginia, the tension was palpable. Satellite feeds showed nothing but sandstorms and radio silence. The official protocol activated immediately. Abort mission. Command ordered all units to withdraw. Ghost 7 was officially Mia. The U.S. government released a statement. Operation Widow's Web has been terminated due to hostile conditions and loss of communication. But back on the ground, Ray refused to accept the call. Wounded but determined, he led the remnants of his team deeper into the desert, away from enemy patrols. "We're not leaving without Brant," he said fiercely. "She's alive." "We know it." Theo nodded, eyes burning with pain and resolve. Under the cloak of the rising sun, Ghost 7 reached an ancient well, a rumored safe house. There, battered and pale, lay Dr. Eliza Brant. Her eyes flickered open, locking onto Ray. "They called off the operation, but you didn't." Ray smiled grimly. "We don't quit." Eliza clutched a battered case, the prototype hidden inside a hollowed book. "They want this," she whispered, voice trembling. "If it falls into the wrong hands, millions die." Ray glanced at his team, each scarred and exhausted. The weight of the mission pressed down on them all. From their radios, a faint crackle echoed the ghost of a signal, nearly drowned in static. Somewhere, Ghost 7 was still alive, and the desert was listening. Dr. Eliza Brant's eyes fluttered open to the cold desert dawn. The weight of exhaustion bore down on her, but beneath it was a sharper burden, the knowledge that her invention was a weapon more dangerous than anyone realized. She lay on a makeshift cot inside the crumbling safe house, guarded by the remnants of Ghost 7. Ray McCall watched her closely. The mission had shifted from extraction to protection, and time was slipping away. Eliza was no ordinary scientist. She carried secrets that could rewrite warfare and destroy lives. 3 months before her disappearance, Eliza's life had changed forever. She had been the lead mind behind the Z-1 prototype, a biometric discriminator designed to identify combatants from civilians instantly. The military hailed it as a breakthrough that could reduce collateral damage in conflict zones. Yet, Eliza had begun to see a darker future. The technology's precision was double-edged. In the wrong hands, it could be used for targeted assassinations, silencing dissidents, ethnic cleansing, or even political purges. She confronted her superiors, demanding stricter controls. But whispers of Black Ops contracts and shadow sales reached her ears. Rogue factions funded by unknown governments were bidding for her work. Determined to stop the misuse, Eliza staged her own disappearance during a visit to Jordan, breaking contact with everyone. But she never imagined the net tightening around her would be so deadly. Now, face to face with Ray, she explained what they were truly up against. "They're not just kidnappers," she said, voice hoarse but firm. "They want me to reverse engineer the Z-1. Their buyers want absolute control over war zones without accountability. If that tech is weaponized, entire populations could vanish overnight." Ray absorbed every word, the urgency clear. How do we stop them? Eliza reached for a battered leather satchel, unzipped it, and pulled out a hollowed book containing the core of her prototype, small, sleek, and deadly. "It has a kill switch hidden deep in its firmware," she said. "If we can get it back to the States, I can disable the weaponized features. But only if we survive extraction." Behind them, Theo and Flick patched their wounds in silence. Theo glanced at Ray and whispered, "They're coming." "We don't have much time." The safe house was a fragile sanctuary. The desert sun began to climb, bringing with it the inevitability of discovery. Enemy patrols swept the area with precision, scouring for signs of the missing scientist and the elite team guarding her. Eliza's whispered warnings echoed in Ray's mind. This wasn't a rescue. It was a standoff against shadows. No one dared name Dot as they prepared to move. Ray received a chilling report from Flick's hacked comm device. Enemy reinforcements were already en route mercenaries armed with electronic jammers and heavy weaponry. The plan to exfiltrate had dissolved. "We hold here, buy time," Ray ordered, voice cold. "We defend until extraction, or until we find another way." Eliza, still weak, insisted on sharing more. She revealed a secret data cache, encrypted logs hidden in the prototype's memory. The files contained evidence of a covert project called Widow's Web, linking rogue operators with powerful financiers, manipulating global conflicts for profit. "The war you're fighting isn't just on the ground," she said, eyes steady. "It's in boardrooms, in back rooms where deals are made and lives are traded like commodities." Ray's jaw tightened. This was no ordinary mission. It was a fight for the truth buried beneath layers of deception. Night fell again, thick and heavy. The team fortified their position as enemy footsteps grew louder. Closing in. Ray gathered his men for a final briefing. "We're outnumbered and outgunned," he said. "But this prototype, this woman, could save thousands, maybe millions. We don't abandon her." Theo nodded, checking his ammo. Flick adjusted his scanner, hunting for weak points in the enemy's electronic assault. Eliza looked around at the men ready to fight and die for a cause larger than themselves. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing." As the enemy closed in, a surge of adrenaline pushed Ray and his team to prepare for a battle that could either end them or become the spark for a mission that refused to die. Weren't just soldiers or scientists anymore. They were the last line between chaos and hope. And the desert held its breath. Sergeant Theo Raines woke to searing pain radiating from his shattered leg. Dust coated his cracked helmet, and the stifling silence was punctuated only by distant gunfire echoing through the ruins. Around him, debris from the destroyed textile factory lay, scattered, a graveyard for the fallen members of Ghost 7. His team was gone, their fates unknown. Theo's jaw clenched as he crawled toward a faint rustling sound. Beneath a broken concrete slab, he found Dr. Eliza Brandt, pale and unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. She clutched a battered leather case, the prototype. Theo's medic training took over. He fashioned a tourniquet from his uniform and wrapped her wounds with shaking hands. "Stay with me," he whispered, voice ragged. The desert sun began its slow ascent, casting long shadows over the shattered city. Theo knew they couldn't wait for rescue. The operation had been called off, and reinforcements wouldn't come. With only a fractured radio and dwindling supplies, he resolved to carry Eliza to safety himself. Dragging her across the broken landscape was agonizing. Every step sent shocks through his leg, but the thought of failure drove him forward. Along the way, Eliza's eyes fluttered open briefly. She whispered cryptic phrases, snippets of encrypted codes embedded in the prototype's firmware. Theo recorded everything, knowing these codes were as vital as the woman herself. Days blurred together. Hunger gnawed at them. Water was scarce, and enemy patrols prowled relentlessly. Theo's rifle emptied quickly, forcing him to rely on stealth and cunning. When an ambush caught him in the open, he escaped by diving into a dry riverbed, hiding beneath a tangle of roots. At night, beneath a blanket of stars, he whispered to Eliza, "We're not done yet. Hold on." Meanwhile, back at command, the official narrative was grim. Ghost 7 had vanished. Families were informed. Memorial services were planned. The government prepared to move on. But within the Pentagon's shadows, a rookie intelligence analyst named Maya Patel wasn't convinced. Reviewing fragments of intercepted signals, she noticed something, a faint, irregular pulse buried beneath static. Enhancing the audio, a barely audible voice emerged. "Ghost 7. Objective complete." Maya's heart raced. She took the clip to General Harper, head of Special Operations Command. "This could be a distress signal," she said. Harper stared at the waveform, then at the empty seat beside him. "If this is true," he whispered, "then Ghost 7 is still alive." Against orders and risking his career, Harper delayed the official termination and authorized a limited surveillance sweep. The window was narrow. If they missed it, the team would be lost forever. Back in the desert, Theo neared the coordinates of an old French airstrip, a rumored extraction point. Eliza's condition worsened. Fever burned through her fragile body. The prototype, hidden in a hollowed book, weighed heavily in Theo's pack, a beacon and a burden. Enemy trucks thundered in the distance, their headlights slicing through the night. Theo dug a shallow trench beside the cracked tarmac and buried the device beneath the sand. With trembling hands, he patched the prototype's kill switch, Eliza's last safeguard against misuse. "We finish this," Theo vowed, holding her close. Firing a flare to signal extraction, he whispered into the cracked radio, "Ghost 7, objective complete." Then everything went dark. Back in Washington, D.C., the Joint Command Center was a hive of tension and frustration. Screens flickered, but the vast desert below revealed nothing, only shifting dunes and static. Ghost 7's last known coordinates vanished under the blanket of sandstorms. Officially, the mission had failed. General Harper stared at the blank feeds, his jaw tight. The president's liaison paced behind him, demanding closure. "Terminate the operation. We can't afford further losses or political fallout," she insisted. The room fell silent. The lives of 6 elite soldiers were being erased from the records, their sacrifices reduced to footnotes. Yet, somewhere deep within the tangled noise of the radio frequencies, a faint heartbeat pulsed. Maya Patel, a young intelligence analyst, hunched over her console, eyes locked on the wavering signal. Her heart raced as she enhanced the static, isolating a whisper, "Ghost 7, objective complete." She replayed the clip again. The voice was barely audible, but unmistakable. "This can't be ignored," Maya urged. "They're alive." "General." Harper's eyes narrowed. "If that's true, we owe them everything to bring them home." But the chain of command was unyielding. The president had ordered extraction halted, labeling the team lost. Harper risked his career by authorizing a covert surveillance sweep, extending their window by just 6 hours. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the desert, Sergeant Theo Raines clung to consciousness beside Dr. Eliza Brandt. His body was battered, his legs shattered, but his resolve burned fiercely. Enemy patrols were closing in. Theo had 1 bullet left and a flickering radio battery. He knew the prototype was buried beneath the cracked tarmac of the airstrip, a secret that could tip the balance of war or peace. With trembling hands, he toggled the radio switch, praying the signal would reach someone. "Ghost 7, objective complete." The static swallowed his voice. Then, through the dust and silence, a faint reply crackled. Someone was listening. At Joint Command, the faint transmission sparked a flurry of activity. A rapid response NATO recovery team was scrambled, their route mapped through the shifting sands. As the rescue team approached the airstrip, they found Theo, unconscious but breathing, leaning protectively over Eliza. She stirred, weak but alive. Prototype was intact. Back in Washington, General Harper stood before the president, briefing him on the miraculous discovery. "The team defied odds, sir," Harper said quietly. "Their courage saved not only a life, but the future of this technology." The president nodded gravely. "We owe them the truth and the honor they deserve." Yet, as the world prepared to celebrate a rescue mission once thought lost, Ghost 7's story remained shrouded in secrecy. Medals were quietly awarded. Names were omitted from public ceremonies. And Sergeant Theo Raines vanished from the public eye, becoming a ghost among ghosts, but in quiet military bars, in whispered conversations, The legend of Ghost 7 lives on. A team that refused to be forgotten. A mission called off too soon, until the radio lit up. Ghost 7. Objective complete. Asterisk, the desert night was unforgiving. A cold wind whipped sand across the cracked tarmac of the abandoned French airstrip. Sergeant Theo Raines lay beneath a shattered canopy, every breath sharp with pain. His leg throbbed, swollen and twisted from the blast. Beside him, Dr. Eliza Brandt stirred weakly, her pale face barely visible in the moonlight. They were alone. The enemy was closing in. Theo's fingers trembled as he unlatched the battered leather case. Inside lay the Z1 prototype, the key to stopping countless deaths or unleashing chaos. The sleek device hummed softly, its kill switch hidden deep within its encrypted core. Enemy vehicles roared in the distance, their headlights cutting through the sandstorm, rolling in like a ghostly tide. Theo glanced toward the horizon, knowing time was slipping away. He dug frantically, burying the prototype beneath a thin layer of sand near a broken concrete pillar. It was their last hope. Eliza, he whispered, brushing damp hair from her forehead. We finish this, no matter what. Her eyes fluttered open, foggy but fierce. She clutched his hand weakly. Promise me. The world can't fall to those who weaponize fear. Theo nodded, swallowing his pain. Then he reached for his radio. The battered device sparked with static as Theo flipped the power switch. His last battery was nearly dead. Hands shaking, he pressed the transmit button. Ghost 7, objective complete. The words barely escaped the crackling speaker. But somewhere, miles away, a faint reply stirred through the static. Theo held his breath. A flare lit the sky above the airstrip, red beacon cutting through the storm. The enemy's footsteps thundered closer. Theo pulled Eliza into a protective embrace. Gun raised, back at Joint Command, the room held its breath. Maya Patel, the young analyst who first detected the faint signal, stared wide-eyed at her screen. Signal confirmed, she reported. General Harper's face tightened with determination. Send the rapid response team, now. Minutes later, armored vehicles and helicopters roared toward the desert. The storm battered them with swirling sand and wind, but they pushed forward, guided by the beacon. At the airstrip, Theo's strength waned. Blood seeped through his torn uniform. Mixing with the sand, Eliza's breathing grew shallow. Just as enemy troops closed in, headlights pierced the swirling dust. Soldiers emerged from armored vehicles, shouting orders. Theo's vision blurred as hands lifted him into safety. Eliza was bundled into a medical transport. As the rescue team secured the area, the prototype was unearthed intact and untouched. The kill switch was engaged. The threat was neutralized. Back at the Pentagon, news of the extraction spread quietly. Families were notified. The operation, once declared lost, was now a story of survival and courage. But the real story, the secret mission, the prototype's power, the men who risked everything remained classified. Theo Raines recovered slowly, his wounds deep, but his spirit unbroken. Eliza Brandt returned to the U.S., determined to dismantle the weaponization of her work. Together, they vowed to ensure that technology served humanity, not destroyed it. In quiet moments, Theo would recall that night, the sandstorm, the flare, the radio crackling with life. A reminder that even in the darkest hours, hope could blaze bright. And somewhere, deep within the Pentagon's silence, the words echoed on secure channels. Ghost 7. Objective complete. The Joint Command Center was tense. The flickering monitors showed only sand and storm, the harsh desert winds masking any sign of life below. Officials prepared to declare the mission lost, the team dead, their names fading from the official records. Families had been notified, memorials scheduled. The nation was ready to move on. But then the radio crackled. static first, then a faint, unmistakable voice. Ghost 7. Objective complete. Technicians froze, disbelief spreading like wildfire. General Harper slammed his fist on the table. "Repeat," he barked. The words echoed again, clearer now, carrying hope where there had been none. An encrypted channel burst alive, and the Joint Command scrambled to pinpoint the signal. Maya. Patel's heart pounded as she tracked the transmission, fragile, but real. Within hours, a NATO rapid response team was deployed, navigating the desert's chaos, guided by the signals. Faint pulse. At the extraction point, the rescue team moved cautiously, weapons ready. Sandstorms threatened visibility, and enemy forces were still nearby. But the beacon was clear. They found Sergeant Theo Raines slumped against a broken wall, half buried in sand, his breathing shallow but steady. Nearby, Dr. Eliza Brandt lay wrapped in a makeshift blanket, her eyes fluttering open as the team approached. Theo's face, dirt-streaked and bruised, cracked a faint smile. "We're not ghosts," he whispered hoarsely. "We're still here." The prototype was recovered intact, its kill switch engaged, rendering it useless to hostile forces. Intelligence officers immediately began decrypting the stored data, revealing the layers of deception and danger Eliza had uncovered. Back in Washington, the president was briefed on the astonishing turnaround. The mission was a success because of courage, grit, and an unbreakable will, General Harper said quietly. The president nodded, solemn but relieved. "Make sure they're honored properly." Yet, the story was kept classified. The details of sabotage, ambush, and heroic survival were buried in secret files. The public heard only of a routine extraction, but among military circles and quiet bars, the legend of Ghost 7 grew. Stories of their defiance, their refusal to die quietly, inspired a new generation of soldiers. For Theo, the rescue was bittersweet. He was hailed as a hero, but shunned public attention. He turned down medals and interviews, disappearing from the spotlight. Eliza Brandt returned to academia, dedicating herself to ethical science. She lobbied Congress to regulate biometric warfare, warning of the thin line between protection and control. Together, they were silent guardians of a secret mission, the ones who had stared into the abyss and survived. And deep inside Pentagon bunkers, encrypted messages occasionally pinned on secure channels. Ghost 7 standing by. Whisper from the void. A promise never broken. Asterisk. The war had ended, or so the world believed. But some battles lingered in silence. Sergeant Theo Raines returned home a ghost. Not by choice, but by necessity. The government offered anonymity, sealed records, and a quiet life far from the limelight. Medals were awarded behind closed doors. His name was whispered only in select circles. Theo accepted, disappearing into the vast wilderness of Alaska. The snow and forests were his refuge, a stark contrast to the desert's burning sands, where he had nearly died. The isolation healed his wounds, but it couldn't erase the memories of friends lost, of a mission called off too soon, and a promise kept at any cost. Dr. Eliza Brandt found her voice in the halls of academia. At MIT, she lectured on ethics in emerging warfare technology, warning young minds of the thin line between innovation and destruction. The Z1 prototype was dismantled, its dangerous potential locked away under layers of security clearance. Yet, despite her return to normalcy, Eliza carried the weight of what could have been, had Ghost 7 failed. Inside Pentagon walls, General Harper quietly ensured the mission's legacy lived on. He mentored new operatives, instilling in them the story of Ghost 7, the soldiers who refused to vanish. He fought tirelessly to protect the truth buried beneath political agendas. The greatest victories, he told recruits, are the ones no one sees. Every July 13th, On the anniversary of the operation's darkest night, Theo's encrypted radio signal pinged the Pentagon's secure networks. The message was brief but clear. Ghost 7 standing by. The signal was a reminder, a promise that, though unseen, they were never truly gone. In dimly lit military bars, veterans shared stories of Ghost 7, of the man who crawled through hell for his team, the scientist who risked everything for her work, and the mission called off only to be resurrected by sheer will. The world outside moved forward, unaware of the invisible line between peace and chaos that Ghost 7 had held. But those who knew the truth understood. Sometimes it takes a ghost to save the living. And so, the legend endured. They called off the operation until the radio lit up. Ghost 7. Objective complete.